So I hope we can, my plan is to finish this today. So, and then we'll go into the more concrete details now that you've got some sense of the way that a narrative like this can unfold. So if you remember, we were just leaving this terrible little bar, which I think was called the Red Lobster or something like that, where the fox and the cat had met the coachman. And the coachman is obviously someone who takes you somewhere. He takes you on a trip. And the coachman basically revealed himself. First, he kind of looks like I guess a somewhat jolly old man, although his expression doesn't precisely read as jolly. And then he reveals himself as something positively satanic. And that's enough to terrify these two-bit thugs, the fox and the cat, who think they're tough but really aren't tough at all. And so they see at some point what they're really tangled up in. And I think I mentioned to you that that was something akin. Jung had this idea that people's shadows reach all the way down to hell, which is actually a very frightening concept. And what he meant by that is that if you take a look at the impulses that drive you that are actually malevolent, if you can admit to such impulses, that if you basically follow those all the way down to their origin, you find some very nasty things. And what you find down there basically is what allies you with people who've done terrible things. And that's not a very pleasant experience, I would say, although one thing that's worth thinking about is that it is something that can protect you against being very, very badly hurt. Because one of the things that characterizes people who develop post-traumatic stress disorder is that they're often naive. And then they encounter something that's really not within their framework of thinking, and it's usually something bad. And because there isn't anything in their philosophy, their way of looking at the world that has prepared them for that, they end up fragmented and devastated. And so it's actually protective to you if you can figure out what your full range of capabilities is, because that can help you understand other people a lot better and to be wiser and more careful in your actions. It's also useful, I think, if you want to convince yourself to act properly, because if you regard yourself as harmless, which is a big mistake, then nothing you can do is really that bad, right? Because you're harmless after all. But if you understand that you're seriously not harmless, then that can make you a lot more careful with yourself. And I would say that's especially true maybe when you have kids and you start dealing with your kids. If you know that what you're capable of because you're human, then that can motivate you to be much more careful with what you say and do. And I don't mean cautious, I don't mean timid, I don't mean any of that. I just mean that you want to keep things pristine between you and your children, let's say, because that way they're on your good side. And you want them on your good side, because children who get on their parents' bad side suffer very badly for it. And sometimes it's because they're literally abused. But more often it's because they get abused, let's say, or neglected in much more subtle ways. And you're definitely capable of that. I mean, all you have to do is think about the way that you've interacted with someone that you've decided to not like, or maybe someone you genuinely don't like, you know. And that can range from just not paying any attention to them, especially if they're doing something good, to really pursuing them and making their life miserable. And you can certainly do that with your family members, and you can do that with your intimate partners, and you can do that with your friends, and you can do it with yourself. And so it's really worth knowing that. So, well, the fox thinks he's a royal rule breaker, but he's really just a two-bit thug, and this is where he learns that. So, sorry, I have a new phone and I'm kind of stupid with it still. So, well, hypothetically that'll work, but it probably won't.